everybody and welcome to my channel. Today we're doing a painted abstract canvas with acrylic paints. And I've decided with this one that I am going to use water to primer our canvas instead of using gesso. So you could use either, but with this one I decided to use water because with using water we can still get some of the texture on our canvas, and if you use gesso that would take the texture away. So we're just priming our canvas with water, and what this does is it helps smooth out the paint and makes it a little bit more movable and flowier. Hopefully that makes sense. So I didn't get into any introductions, so this is Renee and thank you for watching my channel. I have lots more content coming, so make sure you hit that subscribe, and if you like my videos, hit the like and the bell notification and all, which is greatly appreciated. And by hitting that like, you not only just like my videos, but it sends you similar content in your notifications that you might enjoy, so that's always helpful. So right now with doing this video, I am really using, I guess this is about a 12 by 12 canvas, so it gives you an idea of what size I'm dealing with here. And some of the supplies you will be needing I will have written down in the description down below, or you can even go into my blog with the description down below and that will be listed as well. The paint colors I'm using right now, I'm using primarily Dylusions and Dina Wakely and Liquidtex paints. This is a Dylusions, and again the colors will be in the description and on my blog. Right now I'm trying to basically get some layers. I really want to have a lot of layers on my canvas, and what that does is it just gives you, like I said before, texture and a lot of depth. So you can see right through that, and for those people who gel plate, it's kind of the same idea with putting different layers of paint on your gel plate. So this is kind of the same idea. This is a Dina Wakely paint, and the colors are very vibrant, and that's really what I was going for. I'm just layering the colors on top of a 5x7 gel plate or gel press and using it that way. If the colors mix a little bit, it's not a big deal, but I am pausing sometimes the video while I'm actually editing it. So sometimes the paints have actually dried, so they're not actually fresh as it would appear in the video. So again, we're just going for another layer of some texture, and right now it doesn't look like much, but you want to add a lot of layers and a lot of different colors. You don't want to have too many, and you don't want to have them put on there when they're still very wet, because it's just going to make a lot of muck and mud, and your colors are going to mix, which you don't want to happen. So this color, I believe this is raspberry, and it is a gorgeous color. I absolutely love this color, and you're gonna see when I add this on just how much it pops. Like, look at that color. It just looks so yummy. And this color really adds to this, and it really, to me, it gives off summer vibes. And right now, as I'm doing this, it's February, so we're in the middle of winter and in a cold snap. So this is very welcoming, having summer colors. So I've cleaned off my gel plate so we can add more colors. And sometimes that's not a bad thing to do, especially if you're going into different colors that aren't similar to the ones you've already used. So now I'm going in with a blue, and it's a gorgeous robin's egg style of blue. Beautiful color. And what I might mention with using a canvas, for those of you that don't use them very often, you have to be careful to some degree when you're putting paint on using a brayer, because or anything for that matter, because the inside is hollow on a canvas down below. So around the frame is fine, but with the canvas, it's not as easy. So what you could do is put a book or something that's the same level as your frame underneath if you want something completely flat. Otherwise, you just have to be aware that when you put something down, it's going to cave in a little bit. So I was just using my gel plate to add some more color and pop that down just to give you an idea of what that looks like. Now I'm using another color, and I absolutely love this color. This is a Dina Wakely color. And like I said, I will have the colors in the description down below and also on my blog if you want to check out my blog. Gorgeous, gorgeous color. And on this canvas, this is really going to pop. You're really going to see it amongst all the other colors that are on there. I find it a very grounding color. It really sets the mood. And with anybody who's into art or photography, you really are aware of threes. So for anybody that doesn't understand that, you could Google it. But normally you do anything like this, art, even photography, pictures on your wall in threes. So that's what I'm going for here, is I'm breaking things up into thirds throughout my gel plate. And for the most part, that's what I will be following. There's the odd time I don't. So I'm just trying to get a little bit of color in some of the areas where it's kind of bare. Otherwise, for the most part, I'm going for the threes look. With this project, I believe I was using 3 or 4 different Brayers. You don't have to. You can just clean them as you go or dry them off, or do what I'm doing now. I'm just putting a paper down on my gel plate to try and pick up some of that color. And as all of my paints aren't all completely dry, and for the most part when I do this, I'm not giving it a lot of time to dry so I can pull it up like you would a normal gel pull. But what I'm trying to do more than anything is just make it so it's somewhat dry. So when I apply another color, it's not mixing with the colors already on there. So I'm not actually pulling. I did get some really good pulls, but right now it's just really to get off the excess paint. I do have other gel plates I could have used, but I was limited for space, so I was just trying to stick with my smallest gel plate. So I took off some of the colors, but it just basically was giving us some room so we can move and to work and get rid of all that excess paint. So now I'm using a Tim Holtz stencil. It's a gorgeous one. I'm not sure, I think it's Damask, but I will have it listed below. And using that gorgeous Liquidtex color and going over the stencil onto our gel plate. This is a great way to add some different textures and different prints onto your canvas. So you really want to make sure you go through it so the color, the paint gets right through that stencil and onto your gel plate. And I was going to try putting it on because I have an acrylic back on my gel plate, and then decided it's not going to work because the canvas does cave in a little bit. You're going to need to take your gel plate off so you can mold it with your fingers onto your canvas. So just to add your fingers, you don't have to do it very hard. Just pop it down and there you go. I can probably do another one here. There's enough paint still left on our gel plate. There we go. So now I'm going to put that back onto my acrylic block. And that gave us a ton of color on that canvas. So next thing I'm doing, and you'll see a blue piece of paper down below, that's what I was using as my my basic, my brayer off, so I could get rid of all the paint off my brayer. So if you see that from time to time, that's all that is just to get rid of my excess paint. So this is a vintage piece of paper. I think it was German print from a book. So I'm just going to rip off the edges because mostly all I want it for is the print. And again, this is another great way to give you texture and some depth on your creations. You could do this on any kind of thing, whether it's paper, canvas, a flat board, any of your creations. You could do the same technique, which I'm going to show you now. So with this one, and I've done this on many different projects, and I will try and link stuff if I find it through my various videos I've done before. I'm just using our white Liquidtex paint. You don't need much. Then I'm going to grab my brayer. This is just a small one. And basically what we're doing is we're going to put this down in the spaces that we want to have our print. And again, I'm going by the rules of 3. I'm going to rip this up into 3 different areas. And I'm going to apply our white paint as kind of a bind it for our paper. So applying that, we're going to apply our paper. And there's a nice print. And then I'm going to do that in 2 other areas. And again, we're doing this in the rules of 3. I knew exactly where I wanted to have our printed paper. So that's what I'm going for now. So we're adding that. And essentially this is, like I said, a binding. It's kind of like using glue, but you don't want to put glue onto your project. This will hold your paper in place while it dries because we're going to add paper and then paint. We're going to put paint over top of this paper so we can see the font faintly through the paint. So now we're going to do that and put that lightly over top. You don't want to completely cover it because then that gets away from the whole reason why you wanted to have the print there in the first place. So you want to have a light dusting of paint, or you could even dry brush over top. I'm trying not to have too many bristles on here. So I'm doing just a light coating of paint over top. And in some areas, the bottom of the papers and around the sides will be covered with paint, so you're not going to see where it ends. But the bottom one, I want to kind of leave it because I want that texture of the edge of the paper. So now I'm adding some more white Liquidtex paint, or any kind of acrylic paint for that matter, onto our gel plate. And I'm going to add some more white to our creation. As I was doing this project, I was coming up with the idea as I went. I wasn't really winging it. I knew what I was going for and what kind of style I wanted. It was just a matter of putting it all together. I definitely knew what colors I wanted because I'm putting this in a certain room in my house. But yeah, it's always fun to play around. If you want, you don't want to waste a canvas, but you can always go over a canvas again and redo it. You could always try this just on a piece of paper or some kind of board, if you have like some kind of large board. And you could try it that way and see if you like it that way before you go ahead and put it on a canvas. So now I'm just adding the white paint throughout and covering up some of our darker colors. Now I'm adding some Dina Wakely, this gorgeous yellow. It's so pretty. And I'm going to show you what we're going to do now. We're grabbing the stencil and I'm going to brush this on. And normally I wouldn't recommend brushing on paint with a stencil. And I will tell you why. With this one, you really have to make sure that it's popped down because you can actually go underneath the stencil with a brush. Normally I would recommend using a sponge or going straight down over a stencil so that doesn't happen. In this case, I had just put on the white paint, so it was tacked down fairly good. And I really wanted to go for basically the edges of the paint. I wanted it to pop. And with a stencil, if you're using a brush, that can happen. If you're using a sponge, that doesn't normally happen. So that's kind of what I was going for. Also, I wanted to show you the difference using a brush as opposed to using a sponge. And I will be using a sponge right away. So you are going to see the difference of using a brush compared to using a sponge. So now I'm going to go into the top area and I'm going to do some more stenciling the same way we just did. I believe the stencil is a Diane Reevely, like a Dylusion stencil, but it could be wrong. I didn't write on this one which brand it was. So we're just adding some paint, and I don't want to completely do a whole bunch of these crosses. I want to just get a little bit of paint. So we're not doing as large of an area as we did before. This next stencil, you see on the left-hand side, it's a fern or some kind of palm frond. This is a Dina Wakely stencil, and we're going to use the sponge with this one. So I'm going to put this one in the left-hand corner, and I'm going to use a sponge and some black paint with this one. I'm using the Liquidtex black, and it's really a cool stencil. I'm going to use it a couple times, and it is very fun. You don't have to use the whole stencil. You can use bits and pieces because it's quite a large stencil. My little sponge. And when you're sponging, you could even use a makeup sponge. It doesn't have to be an art sponge. So just lightly apply. You want to push down that stencil. Same thing, make sure it doesn't lift. And lightly apply by dabbing on your paint. Normally I go lightly when it's a sponge type of effect, just to make sure I don't use too much paint, because you can always go back after, as long as you don't move your stencil, and add more paint. So just keep dabbing. Make sure you get the whole area. If you wanted to, you could do like a dry brush type of sponging. It's totally up to you how much you want to add. Lots of fun. I love these creations. It's so fun to just play around and create all new things. Use all different colors. It's so much fun. See, look at that pop out. I decided, because I'm trying to do the same look on both sides, I'm going to do this up top, but I'm going to turn it around. So I'm using the same side, just flipped around. And I'm not going to use as much as I did before. I'm going to use a little bit less, because I wanted the main focal point to be the middle to the lower part of the canvas and not so much the top. So same thing, same technique we did before. I have a lot more videos coming up with mixed media, using gel plates, more canvases, painting, drawing. Also, I've got my videos coming up with my journaling, which I do a lot of. So lots of journaling videos. I've had requests to do more scrapbooking pages, scrapbooking 3 ways, using the same products. So I will be having those coming up again. Those seem to be really liked. And also make sure you check out my, my Etsy shop. And the link is down below for lots of the products I use. They're for sale down below in my Etsy shop. So that turned out really cool. I like that. I've added a little bit of yellow, and now we're just going to use some bubble wrap. Everybody's probably got bubble wrap kicking around, and add some more color. This yellow, it's a Dylusions yellow, and it was a little on the runny side, as you're going to see coming up. So with that one, you really want to make sure you shake it very, very well, because sometimes it's not shaken as great and it's a little on the runny side. So that's where I found it this time. So I put some more on. I didn't shake it as well as I should have, and I probably should have thinned it out on my gel plate first. So I'm going to get a nice big blob right now. I do fix that after, and I will show you why. I could have edited that out of the video, but I decided not to. I wanted to show you so I could show you how you can fix it. And also to tell you not to do it. Easy mistake. So now I let this dry a little bit in between. I just grabbed a Kleenex and I'm just soaking up the excess water, moisture, paint, whatever you want to call it, from our canvas, because there's a lot of extra on that side. And you can just leave it. You can go over it later with some white paint, or you could put anything over top of that. I would probably recommend white paint, but it's easy to fix that. So I'm adding some more Dylusions yellow, using our bubble wrap again, and just adding a little bit more yellow, trying to add just a little bit more texture and a little bit more brightness to some of the areas that were a little bit darker. So now I'm putting down our blue piece of paper, and again, this is just like I said before, I'm trying to pick up some of that paint. Not doing a gel press creation, although I did get some really awesome pulls. I am just trying to lift the paint. I've been asked by multiple people to do a few lives, and I'm contemplating doing some live events and some live creations. If that's something you would like to see, I would love to hear from you in the comments. So drop me a message and just tell me if you would like to see some live events. I am planning on having a live sale coming up here before long. I did one a couple years ago. I plan on doing another one, and I might wind up doing that. If I do, I would love to know if people are interested in that. Chances are I will be selling some more vintage books and vintage items that might be more geared towards people. Well, I mean, you could use those for your gel plates and your mixed media, but primarily probably for people who junk journal. So I would love to hear from you if that's something you're interested in. So make sure you give me a message down below. If you really want to, you can email me at createandplaywithrene@gmail.com. So now we've lifted off most of that paint from our gel plate. There's a little bit left, but it's drier. So we can go ahead and use our gel plate again and add some more colors. This time we're adding white. I'm loving how this is turning out. So pretty. So now I decided I was just going to go over it again and just lighten up some of the darker areas. And I went over our gel plate a few times because I was trying to smooth it out, because we're essentially doing like a dry brush technique, but with our brayer. So we're adding in some more of that white, but very lightly. You don't want to add too much. Okay, so that's probably enough of that. Our next step in this process, I grabbed a Diane, or sorry, I keep saying Diane, and this one is a Dina Wakely stamp, and my favorite ink that I love to use, Versafine Clair, and this is the color Nocturne. So I use this a lot when I really want a vibrant, bold image. This is the stamp pad I use. So I'm going to place this again in multiple places. And basically what it's doing is giving some more text and texture, really, kind of like we did with our piece of paper with the script on it. So we're putting this all over. You could use Tim Holtz ink. My only issue with that, I thought, is because I'm going to be covering this a little bit with some more paint, I thought if I used like an archival type of ink, or no, not archival, if I used a distress ink, once I put the paint down, it might not show as much. So that's why I went for the Versafine Clair. And it's on there pretty dark right now, but once we add a little bit of paint, it's not going to be as much of a kind of in your face look. So I let that dry a little bit, and now I'm going through again with our white that's left over, that's somewhat dry brushed, and we're going to go over top. So I want that script visible, just not the focal point of our creation. You can leave it or cover it as much as you want. With mine, like I said, I just wanted it to be in the background. So our next step that we're going to do is a fun one. I'm using our black Liquidtex paint again. And those of you that have been in the scrapbooking world for a long time, and when I say long time, I'm talking about the mid-2000s, may or may not have some foam stamps kicking around. I have tons of them. I was heavily into this foam stamp movement back then, and I love foam stamps. This one is a Heidi Swapp foam stamp, and if you have any kind of foam stamps, they would work, but I wanted to do a letter. As my last name starts with an A, I wanted to do a letter A on this because it's going to be in my house. You could put any kind of image, but I wanted to have something that wasn't a picture, I guess. So I have this really awesome font, and I'm doing a capital letter A, an uppercase A. So there we go. And I wanted that to be a little darker because it's over top of some of our scripty font. So there it is. I decided I am just going to leave that like that. But then I thought, you know, I kind of want to add a little bit more. So, but you don't want to get too carried away with doing too much because it's very easy to do. So now I'm just thinning out our black paint so it's not so stark, so vibrant on there. And I'm going to show you a mistake I made. And really, there's no bad mistakes when it comes to this. I just wanted to leave this video, this part of the video in, so I could show you what I tried and why it didn't work. So I added our lovely raspberry color again. And originally I thought, you know what, I'm going to make a few lines on here, again, for that depth and dimension. I used my, there you can see, I'm going to try and do a line using the edge. Yeah, and it's not working. Partly because I'm on the frame, but then the canvas goes down because, like I said before, it caves in a little bit, so it did not work. So I just wanted to show that to you. You could try doing something like that in a different way if you wanted to use like a string or something like that, but doing something flat like that doesn't work. So now I grabbed this awesome stencil. I'm putting our raspberry color over top, and I'm trying to get through all of the holes in the stencil because you want all of that paint to go through onto your gel plate. So we're getting through all of those areas that are open on our stencil. There we go. And the black is not going to come through because that's dry. We're just going for the raspberry color. You could have left our creation that we already had the way it is because it looks great that way, but I wanted to add a little bit more. So we're going to add our gel plate to a few different areas. Again, I'm going for 3s with our lovely circular raspberry dots. Love the color because it did mix a little bit with the black that was on there, so it's kind of a nice color. I love that color. And then I added just a little bit more. Love it. So then you put your gel plate back on your acrylic block, and I could have made another gorgeous pull with this one. I decided I was just going to cover it with our blue paper and get rid of it that way. So now we're adding our blue paint, and what I decided to do with this is just add some more color to the corners. And really that was it. It was just to try and finish off our project because this is the tail end of our project. So I'm just evening it out, and I'm putting it throughout the whole gel plate because this is the best way for me to try and thin it out so I could basically do like a dry brush technique. I love how it turned out. This was the tail end of it, and I knew right then after I added the blue that this was going to be it. I didn't want to add any more. I also realized that I might need a smaller brayer. So I went for my little brayer because I wanted to get into little areas. I didn't want to add a ton. I just needed a little bit. And with the other brayer, it would have added too much. I was kind of going for like a washed out graffiti look. With this little bit of white, I decided to add some droplets. So I did add a little bit of water to lighten up the water, or to lighten up the paint, and just flick it on. So flick, flick, flick all over, kind of like it's snowing, and I was just going for that flicked out look. So I got a little bit that way, and I liked the look of it, but I wanted to add a little bit more. So what I did was I also decided to use some Tim Holtz Distress Spray in the color Picket Fence. So I went for that look as well and added a lot more. If you've got distress sprays, it is a lot easier to use, I find, than doing it with paint. But you could do either. You get the same technique and the same look with both. You just take your distress spray if you have it, or any kind of spray for that matter. Make sure you give it a good shake, and you open it up and flick it. And it's the same way, same type of technique as we were doing with our paint for the most part. And just tap her on. And then you could just get some more out of your bottle, just tap her on. And then yeah, you just let it dry, and that's the end of your creation. I didn't paint the outside edges of our creation. You could, but I didn't do it on this one. I just left it white. And there you have it, folks. This is our creation. Thanks for watching, everybody. That's it. Hope to see you soon. Bye.